Hey, welcome to the studio. I'm getting ready to oil paint on paper, so let me show you how I prepared this surface so you can make some for yourself. Well, hello. Today I'm going to be making some very inexpensive pieces of paper that have been impregnated with shellac or covered with shellac, and what this allows is to have some very inexpensive supports to go and do plein air painting on in particular and do studies. And what I do is I actually purchase 100 count bundle of 8.5 by 14 80-pound cover stock, and I make a little mark on each of the backs of each of them just to let me know what's back and what's front. And the reason I do that is because later on, after I shellac one side of it, and you can certainly shellac both sides, you can see a little bit of the bleed through as the shellac impregnates the paper. But when it dries, and it dries very quickly, you'll be able to use them with your oil paints and not run any risk of oil paint drying coming through the paper. And this works out to be, I'll tell you the cost. A bundle of this are 100 sheets of that, and I'll cut them down to 8.5 by 7 pieces, so I can do 6 by 8s. But you could certainly get an 8 by 10 out of this, or any different number of sizes, and it works out to about 30 cents a sheet, so that's pretty economical. And when you get costs that are low like that, we tend to be willing to use them more, where they're not so precious to us. So I'll be using some bullseye shellac. This is clear, and it comes in amber or clear, and you can use either one of them. And I saw Amy Erickson do this, and I thought it was fantastic, and so that's when I decided to do it for myself, and I really enjoyed it. So first, what we need to do is open up the can, and we're not going to shake this because that'll introduce bubbles into the shellac. So we stir it. Manufacturers suggest you stir it, and so I stir it. And this just gets those shellac solids up off the bottom. I pre-stirred this before I started this video. So we stir that really well, and make sure you're in a well-ventilated space for this. So, all right. And I'm just using a natural hair brush. Nothing special about it. You can get it from your home center. And so let me put this one aside and get one of these pieces. I'm just going to do 5 of them. I'll show you just how quick it goes. And they'll dry within just within minutes. And I put some paper down just to cover up my work surface here. And clearly you can see it doesn't really matter about direction of your brush stroke or anything like that, but you'll see it soaking into the paper. And I just kind of scrub it in there. And that's all there is to it. Let me just put this one aside and grab me another one. You can already see it's starting to dry. Do a circular motion. Put your kid's initials in it. Whatever you want to do. We'll just make sure we have a nice coat. Immediately starts penetrating that paper. You can actually kind of throw these on the floor, but this is going to dry really quick. I think this one's almost dry already. Give me another one of these. And what I do is, after they dry, I'll leave them like this. I won't cut them down yet because I might want one that's a little bit larger. But when I decide, like just the other day, I took about 15 sheets of it, and I cut them down in half and made those ones that are really great to be used on the 6 by 8s. And it 30 cents a piece. My goodness, you can do so many of these. And then I'm just going to put this one on the floor. But at that cost, you can do a whole bunch of studies. I did try it with gouache, and that's unsuccessful. You probably figure that out. But I tried it, and it just the water media just beads up on it. And in that case, you can gesso this paper as well, but it just works really well for the shellac. If you have a fan going, that'd probably make it really quick as well. Just get some air movement going in here. You can do this in a sketchbook as well. In fact, I've got some plans to do that. I've got a little notebook. There's the hair coming off there. Coming in that I'm going to dedicate to painting in. Michelle Wooderson has kind of a process video out there. You can check her out on Instagram, and she's got a nice little process for binding these up and making them into little flip books to carry out and do your plein air pieces. So that's the last one of the 5 that I'm doing. So I'll show you. This one's already dry to the touch. It'll dry within another 5 minutes. So you can see where it's bled through, and there's nothing wrong with that. So just to test this out before you guys came along, I just took some oil paints and I really thinned them down, and you can see no bleed through on the back with the oil paints. So used odorless mineral spirits and really scrubbed in the oil paint, and you can see it's still wet here in this in the blue, but absolutely no bleed through on the other side. So I think that'll be very profitable for you, and then you're not afraid to use some materials and get out there, and you can even sell these. We can talk about that at another time, but I think you'll find that really helpful. I just want to give you an opportunity to see what we do with these brushes like this one that I've used previously on shellac, and I just leave it out and let it dry. And the reason is because you can regenerate these brushes just by exposing it or dipping it in shellac and kind of working with it. So there's really no reason for me to go and clean it. So right now, as you can tell, I think you can hear that. This brush is just hard, can't move it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to dip it in this shellac here. And I'm going to do a little time lapse, but let's see, I'm going to look at my watch here and just see how long it takes. And I'll use this just to kind of work it. So we'll let that, it's already starting to move a little bit. Just letting the shellac drain off the brush. Then I'll work it back in here again. Starting to move. There we go. And so the shellac is actually, they're shellac flakes, and they're suspended in an alcohol. You can probably hear my traffic noise behind me, but I can just work those tips. Pretty soon it starts to give way. Let me work this a little bit more. And let me just let that sit for just a little bit. Okay, now let me work these bristles a little bit more, and you can see, I think, how they're starting to soften up a little bit. So just at that level, I could go ahead and re-shellac some paper again. Let's get it a little bit more. So I'm gonna work it just a little bit in here. I think you can see that. Doesn't take a lot. Getting pretty soft. That's probably pretty good for going back at paper, but I'm gonna let it sit about another 2 minutes and then we'll take a look at it. Okay, it's been about 2 minutes. We'll dip here, let's see where we are. That looks pretty good. Now I think we're kind of back in business here. So it's just taking a few minutes, as you can see, and here I go. I'm back at business, making more. Hey, I hope you liked that, and I think it'll be valuable to you. And if you liked it, go ahead and give the video a thumbs up, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.